What's up, everyone? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college basketball. It is Monday, March the 31st. Yes, we have some hoops tonight. The Crown begins. Not sure why. It is very late in the process. There's a couple key things about that are going to affect tonight's games. But before we get into it, thank you, anyone who has supported the channel. We just crossed 1,000 subs, which was a huge milestone for a small channel. So thank you if you've subscribed, left a comment, even just liked the video or watched. It truly does mean a lot, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much. Hopefully a lot more to come. On the Crown, March 31st start is a little concerning for the games. The transfer portal's open. A lot of these teams have many players in the transfer portal, some more than others. Utah's team, essentially the whole thing is in the transfer portal. So I did the best I could to figure out who is available and who is already gone from the teams. With that said, the information is not perfect. There are some situations we just don't know. Reporting is poor, or these schools are just small. We're going to get more information at tip-off. So make sure you're paying attention. If you're playing anything in these games, it is going to be important that you are available throughout the day. Just figure out who's playing in the games. With all that said, let's dive right in. Utah takes on Butler, and thankfully this is the first game of the day because this is the game that has the most potential absences. Right now we have a 1.5-point spread leaning Utah's direction. The total in the game is 155.5. So Utah fired their coach. They've hired a new guy. He's an NBA guy, and they're using an interim for this game, and there's a ton of potential absences. Ezra Osser missed their last game with an injury. Keanu Dawes, transfer portal. Lawson Lovering, transfer portal. Jake Wallen, transfer. Hunter Erickson, transfer. Myra Little, transfer. And Caleb Launer's in the NFL. He played on Utah's football team. He also is a varsity basketball player, and he just recently did Utah's Pro Day. Based on that, I'm guessing he's not playing in this game because he seems to be training for the NFL. The draft is in a month, so I don't think he's playing. From there, I went through about every single media post that you could possibly find with Utah, and I did see Ezra Osser in the post. He's on the flight to Vegas. Dawes was there. Lovering was there. Erickson's there. So I'm thinking it's mostly a healthy Utah team playing in this game, despite everyone entering the portal. With Butler, really the only concern is Finley Bizjack got hurt in their most recent game, but that was all the way back on March 13th. So he's had 3 weeks to really prepare for this and hopefully come back. Outside of all of the absences, transfer portal stuff, these teams are very close. Utah is 76th in total power rankings. Butler is 75th. Utah went 2-9 against the top 50. Butler went 2-13. But I think we have some higher end wins on the Utah side. They beat BYU and Kansas, two teams that made the NCAA tournament. Butler's best wins came against SMU and Mississippi State, so that's just one team in the tournament. And then Butler definitely has the worst losses. They dropped a game to number 280 Austin Peay, also lost to North Dakota State at 136. And Utah's worst loss is probably to Oklahoma State at 96. They also lost to UCF a pair of times, but that team came in 68th overall, so it's a good body of work. Neither of these teams have played since the beginning of March because of the way the Crown is structured. As far as stylistics go, Utah, they come in 8th in effective height, 29th in rebounding. Butler is 19th in effective height, 176th in rebounding. So I think we do have a pretty solid advantage towards this Utah team just on the glass. Because, again, we are expecting most of those players to actually be in the lineup tonight with them all traveling to Vegas. But you never know. Just make sure you watch and see. As far as some of the shooting stylistics go, Butler's 80th in effective field goal percent, 142nd in two-point percent, 44th in three-point percent. This is mainly Finley Bizjack and Pat McCaffrey, which is why Bizjack's also very important to this game. They both hit over 40% of their threes. Jameel Telfort's not far behind at 36.1%. But that's where you need to attack Utah. On defense, they are 70th in total defense, 48th inside. They play a very deep rotation, too. They're 175th in three-point defense. So this is where you need to attack Utah. And on the depth of this team, they're 19th in bench minutes. So even if some of these guys in the portal don't play, you still have a lot of bodies to throw at that. Like Lovering is 7'1", Dawes is 6'9", Keller's not in the portal, he's 6'10". Wallen 6'10", Oster 6'8". I mean, even Madison 6'6", and this goes pretty deep. Not all of these guys are in the portal, just most of them are. So that's worth noting, that even if one of the portal guys misses, they're still deep enough where this height should be able to not only win out in the rebounding, but defend the perimeter. So it is important that Bizjack plays and Butler shoots over the top of this. On the other side, Utah's 126th in effective field goal, 69th in two-point percent, 230th in three-point percent, just a very different team. They're scoring at the rim. But they shoot a lot of threes still. I'm not sure why they're 72nd in three-point rate, but they are. Butler's defense is stronger defending the three. They just have better guard play. So you definitely want to score inside on this Butler team. They're 145th overall in total defense, 181st inside, 46th defending the perimeter. And I think that's largely just because they play a bigger lineup, Butler does. You know, like Pierre Brooks and Jameel Telford are generally playing guard positions. They're 6'6" and 6'7". Then you're throwing Pat McCaffrey at the 4 and some combination of like Kapke and Screen at the 5, who are not the best players. So it's like your guard position is very strong, and I think that's largely because you're so long. So yeah, I mean, when you're taking the matchup inside, like Lovering versus Kapke or Screen, I would take Utah on the guard. At the guard position, I'm taking Butler overall. On the periphery, not expecting many turnovers. Butler does generate a lot of fouls, 66 most, and Utah commits a lot of fouls. They're 285th in fouls committed. Again, Utah's deep on the bench, 19th in bench minutes, but free throw percentage, Butler does vastly outrank Utah 110 to 357. So potential advantage for Butler there. We make this about a pick'em. I actually went to an extra decimal place to show you who would be favored in this game. We have Utah by 0.3 of a point. But you can find plus 1.5 out there on the Butler side, which is the side we lean to. Not going to play this until tip-off, which is early in the day. I believe this is a 3 p.m. Eastern tip, maybe 2 p.m. Eastern tip. So anyway, you'll have the information early in the day if you're at work or something. This will be in Discord. We're covering this game in Discord, all of the Crown, the remaining NIT games, including player props. So that's projections for sides, totals. And they have player props for the Crown. I was surprised to see it, but points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, minutes, it's there. If you're interested for the Final Four and the Crown, it's all there in the Discord. No long-term commitments, $10 for a week, $30 for a month. Thank you to anyone who's supported. The link is in the description. George Washington takes on Boise State. This game has a spread of 8.5 in favor of Boise. 141.5 total. In this game, we do have a couple transfer portal guys. JaQuoy Hutchinson is playing in this game for George Washington despite being in the portal. He's the only one we have actual news on. Darren Buchanan's in the portal. Dayon Neese is in the portal. Keegan Harvey's in the portal. No one has said a word whether they're going to play or not. Boise State has a couple players in the portal. They're more depth pieces, so I don't think it matters a ton, but Dylan Anderson and Chris Lockett Jr. So out of those guys, by far the biggest news piece is Darren Buchanan. Is he going to play or not? He was the 6th man for George Washington this year. Outside of that, resume-wise, we have Boise State 48th overall, George Washington 113th overall. Starting with George Washington, they went 1-6 against the top 100, had a rogue win over Dayton. A lot of bad losses, American, Richmond, UMass, LaSalle, all outside the top 200. Most recently saw them on March 14th. They got crushed by George Mason in the A10 tournament. Boise was right on the bubble. A lot of people thought this team was going to make the NCAA tournament after they had that elimination game against Colorado State, but ultimately they couldn't get in at large. They went 4-4 against the top 50. 2 really good wins, Clemson and St. Mary's. But then they also lost to Boston College at 181 and Washington State at 124. They played today as well. As far as this game goes, tempo should be pretty slow. Boise State is 286, George Washington 209th. Both of those teams have dropped since January 1st in conference. George Washington down to 254, Boise to 306. Honestly, I think you could take it under every single one of these games playing on a neutral court in Vegas, but some are a little more enticing than others. This is definitely one of them. And from there, effective height, George Washington 88th. They don't use it well. They're 181st in rebounding. Boise State is the exact opposite, 183rd in effective height, but 9th in rebounding. Somehow, George Washington is 316th in defensive rebounding. Not sure how you get that stat. Just not a very good team on the glass despite being tall. From there, they're also not good shooting. 188th in effective field goal percent, 97th inside, 297th in three-point percent. It's basically just Trey Autry hitting 38% of his threes, and that's about it. They do have solid statistical production from Rafael Castro at the rim, playing the 5. He's 6'11". But Boise State's worst place on defense is the perimeter. They're 204th in three-point defense, 87th inside, 57th in total defense. So it's not really a good matchup for George Washington on paper, a team that can't shoot, can't rebound. Just you kind of need to do one or the other if you're going to be a decent team. Boise State is 108th in effective field goal percent, 26th in two-point percent, and 318th in three-point percent. This team also can't shoot, but they're much better at getting to the rim and more efficient at the rim. They do take a lot of threes still. I don't know why. 79th in three-point rate. But man, they sort of adjusted to this recently. Degenhart is shooting 34% from three, so I guess he's okay. But he's good at the rim. No one can really shoot. It just is what it is. George Washington's 106th in total defense, 100th inside, 58th from three. So there are definitely paths at the rim to beating this George Washington team. And Boise State comes in with such a, I guess, superior defensive rating because they outrank George Washington in turnover margin significantly. For reference, 161 to 251 in turnovers committed, so they're a little more secure with the ball, but the real difference is turnovers forced. George Washington does come in 61st, Boise 250th. So you have Boise State potentially having some advantages here, but honestly, this kind of comes out in the wash just because these teams, the way they're forcing turnovers is a little different. You have George Washington. This is actually probably a pretty significant edge for George Washington. It's just the level of competition is a bit of a concern for me. We'll see on this. I don't know if this is going to translate up. Anyway, from there, fouls don't project to play a major role. Boise State is much better on the line than George Washington, 20th to 252nd, which needs to be noted. But at the end of the day, I'm looking more at a total than a side in this game. You have both teams with struggles on offense. Neither team can shoot particularly. Boise is definitely better at the rim, but both teams are slow already. Both teams have slowed since conference play has started. I guess I talked myself into a little bit on the George Washington side via the turnovers. That is their main advantage, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough when Boise holds a lot of other ones, including rebounding, interior scoring. But it's a tough matchup, and I'm not sure either of these teams can score 70 points. And we need them both to essentially in this game if we're going to play, or at least one of them to significantly over to hit a total. So we're going to look at an under, waiting on it till later in the day. There is some money coming in on the over, so no real incentive. But on that, obviously, we're talking about gambling. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. You must be 21 or older to play in most areas. Nebraska takes on Arizona State. 4.5-point spread, 5-point spread in some spots in favor of the Cornhuskers, 154.5 total. A lot of injuries in this game, but not sure on transfer stuff. Nebraska has not actually lost a lot of transfers, but they did lose their point guard. Raleigh Worcester is not going to play in the tournament due to an injury. They also have a couple depth pieces. Gavin Griffiths and Braxton Mee are dealing with injuries and may not play. Arizona State, this team. B.J. Freeman got kicked off the team. He's in the transfer portal. Josan Sannon's in the portal. He already committed to St. John, so I don't think we see him. Maybe we do. Who knows? Jaden Quaintance has been out with an injury. The Arizona State beat thinks he's out of this game. So there's more impactful departures, transfers, injuries on the Arizona State side. Nebraska is also much higher than Arizona State in power rankings, 50 to 71. Nebraska was honestly, throughout the entire process, projected to be in the NCAA tournament until they lost 5 straight games to end the year. And not only missed the NCAA tournament, but missed the Big Ten tournament. They went 7-8 against the top 50, beat UCLA and Illinois in the top 25. Their worst losses are to Minnesota at 88, and then they dropped a pair of games to Iowa, including the season finale, who came in 63rd. Arizona State went 2-12 against the top 50. They beat New Mexico and St. Mary's. Their worst losses came to Oklahoma State and TCU. They played more recently, I guess, because every team makes the Big 12 tournament, but they lost to Kansas State. And again, Nebraska did not make the Big 10 tournament. Pacing in this game is weird. Nebraska's basically remained consistent. They're 162nd overall. Arizona is 113th on the year, but Arizona State has been continually jumping in pace. They're 91st since January 1st, and somehow it's gotten even faster than that. If you just look at March, I wanted to isolate when they kicked B.J. Freeman off the team, lost Quaintance, and somehow they've gotten faster, which makes no sense because they're playing with a reduced rotation, including some walk-ons. Even Adam Miller missed some time. Height-wise, Nebraska's 55th in effective height, 207th in rebounding. Arizona State is 45th in effective height, 282nd in rebounding. I'm still giving this edge to Nebraska now that they're mostly healthy on the inside. You still have Juwan Gary. You have Morgan inside. I don't think Mia plays, but if he does, he's there. But then you also have Berkey Byung-Tunsel at 6'10". So there's a lot of options to throw in the front court at a very, very thin Arizona State team. Shooting-wise, neither team's particularly good, but Nebraska holds a slight edge. 135th overall, 89th inside, 238th in three-point percent. You basically have a couple decent shooters in Nebraska. Connor Essegian's at 37.5%, Bryce Williams at 35.5%. Arizona State is 81st in total defense, 202nd in two-point defense, 115th in three-point D. And their best defender, Quaintance, is projected to miss this game. He's their best rim protector. I think you can attack this two-point weakness. Bryce Williams is 6'7". He's one of the best scorers I guess shot creators attacking the rim. He's awesome and should get whatever he wants. Juwan Gary playing inside. I don't think Nebraska has any issue attacking this two-point defense. On the other side, Arizona State 140th in effective field goal, 228th in two-point percentage, and 68th in three-point percent. Adam Miller does shoot 44% from three. Alston Mason's still there. He shoots 38%. And Nebraska does have some defensive weaknesses. They're 158th inside, 192nd defending the three. You can definitely shoot over the top. The problem I really have is what else are you really using if you're Arizona State? I mean, they're going to have to play Amir Ali, Sean Phillips. Trevor Best is going to get some minutes in this game. I mean, this is just a very, very thin and weak team. If we see any foul trouble, this is going to be a huge problem. Like Bashir Jihad has gotten in foul trouble a bit. I don't know, man. This team is just so thin at this point. Losing Josan Sanin to the portal was a really big loss for a team that already didn't have room for it. And from there, turnover margin significantly favors Nebraska. Foul margin's pretty close, but if either team gets to the line, Nebraska outranks Arizona State 86 to 137 there. And this turnover margin is huge. Arizona State was already 259th in turnovers forced, 204th in turnovers committed. You basically have Nebraska about 100 spots ahead of them in both. I don't like playing a lot of these crown games right at the jump, but this is one we will play. I think Nebraska's going to take some money. Took a -4.5. Most of the crown, we're going to, at least the first round, once the first round starts and plays, we're going to know who is gone, the portal guys, and who stayed to play for their last hurrah. Right now, we don't know that. So the approach is going to play most of the games at tip-off, but this is one I think we can take some value on right now. Last up, Georgetown takes on Washington State. 3.5 point spread in favor of Georgetown, 159.5 total. Georgetown's Thomas Sorber unfortunately got hurt way back in February, so he's been gone. Caleb Williams hasn't played in a little bit either for this team. Drew Fueller hit the portal, their center. Not sure if he plays. There hasn't been any word if he's around. Washington State, Cedric Coward got hurt way earlier in the season. Dane Erikstrom missed their last game, at least part of it. I don't believe he played in the second half. He should be back. He's been in their media stuff. Nate Calmes, Isaiah Watts both hit the portal. And I don't think they're going to play. The head coach of Washington State, David Riley, commented on them, and basically everything he said was in the past tense, how much he appreciated what these players have given them. I didn't see them in media, so I don't think we see them. We'll have to wait on their status, but that would leave Washington State extremely thin at guard. Overall, Georgetown's 86th. They went 2-8 against the top 50. Wins over Creighton and Xavier. They did lose to DePaul 3 times, lost to Notre Dame, so they have plenty of bad losses. Their most recent one was against DePaul in the Big East tournament on March 12th. Washington State is 124th overall. They went 4-11 against the top 100. Best wins over San Fran, Boise, Nevada, and Bradley. But they lost 3 times outside the top 100. Somehow 2 of them came to Pacific, who was 285. Anyway, Washington State last played on March 9th. They lost a game to San Francisco, who didn't have Marcus Williams. Pretty questionable body of work. Pace-wise, it's actually pretty decent. Georgetown's 122nd. That hasn't changed much. Washington State is 30th. They've dropped to 57th, so still playing fast. Both teams are tall. Georgetown is 29th in effective height, 135th in rebounding. Washington State is 28th in effective height, 174th in rebounding. I think you can chalk this edge up to Washington State because you no longer have Sorber. If Fielder doesn't play at the center for Georgetown, you're just really thin in the front court. So I think we can find some edges in this regard towards Washington State. But Georgetown still wins in some greasier ways. They don't really shoot the ball well. They're 198th in effective field goal, 134th in two-point percent, 272nd in three-point percent. They only have one shooter. Micah Peavy's been absolutely flame-throwing, 40% of his threes. And Washington State is horrible on defense. They're 181st overall, 228th inside, 155th in the perimeter. I've been waiting for Jaden Epps to do something all year. Maybe he bounces back, but you have at least one guy in Peavy. Malik Mack is decent. Just not really sure who's going to fill your front court spots at this point. I guess your best options are probably Jordan Burks, who's been okay, and then Peavy at 6'8" can play the 4. So you're just thin down there. And we don't even know if Caleb Williams is going to play. So we'll have to see on that. But anyway, on the Washington State side, you essentially don't have a point guard right now, especially if Isaiah Watts and Calmes are actually out of this game, which I think they are. You're probably going to have to move 6'6" Lawan Watts up to point guard. He barely played that position all season, but they have like 3 guards on the team right now. With that said, they're 10th in effective field goal, 9th in two-point percent, 49th in three-point percent. And a lot of these three-point shooters are not the guards departing. They have great floor spacing. 6'10" Ethan Price is a 38% three-point shooter. 6'11" Dane Erkstrup is a 37%. Lawan Watts at 6'6" is 42%. Georgetown does play better defense. They're 65th overall, 82nd inside, 175th defending the perimeter. The problem is they just lost their best defender in Sorber, who is like miles ahead of anyone else in total defensive efficiency. But there's a big question with both of these teams. With Georgetown, it's what are they going to do in the front court, given Washington State has a ton of size and they're thin. But conversely, how is Washington State going to get the ball up the court? They don't have a point guard right now. In the periphery, Georgetown is 55th in turnovers forced. So this is even worse. With the point guards on the roster, Washington State was 339th in turnovers committed, and now their top 2 point guards are in the portal. Georgetown's 55th in turnovers forced. This is a huge mismatch in favor of Georgetown. Fouls don't project to play a major role. Free throw shooting is pretty even, below average for both of these teams. I'm interested in an under in this game. You could talk me into the Georgetown side at 3.5. We do show a little value on that, basically making it -4. But man, I mean, one, you're on a neutral court. Generally, scoring comes down a little bit. Pace should drop slightly in this game, even though it's very fast. But if you're looking anywhere, it's getting slower, especially with players being gone. There's questions on offense for both of these teams. Georgetown can't shoot. I don't know how Washington's really going to get the ball up the floor. They'll probably have a plan for this, but we'll see. Under 159.5 is a fine play. I don't have a real feel on where this moves, so we're going to wait and see and potentially play this towards tip-off. But that'll do it for day 1 of the Crown. Tomorrow we have more Crown games, and I believe the NIT returns, so we'll discuss that before leading up to the Final Four and then turning the page to college football. Thank you for watching and supporting. Until next time, good luck. We'll see you later.